Yeah. Because then it'll say that we're live.
We are live.
And
Yeah.
then we have to wait and give it a beat or two so that it can be live and nothing's cut off and all those sorts of good things. Did you tweet us out, by the way?
I did. We have
Oh, okay.
24, 21 waiting. Over 100 last night for the draft live stream.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Okay. Good, good, good. All right. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. You going to believe Bruce Arians or not? Okay, Leonard Fournette, he is a Buccaneer. Bruce Arians making some comments on his backfield. Fantasy GMs all in a scramble last night in Fessel OG, Bloom. I was thinking that Leonard Fournette would go off the board. It was kind of like we talked on the show yesterday. Like, you're going to get to a tipping point with guys like Todd Gurley, with guys that you don't normally want. Now, I did wait on running backs, so my top 2 running backs are Devin Singletary, Phillip Lindsay. Nobody cares about your fantasy team. But I did get Leonard Fournette. I can't remember the round. Please tell me whatever.
8-12.
Okay, I was going to say it was about the 8th round. So into the 8th round in a 12-team PPR league, Superflex league, I got Leonard Fournette. What did I get?
We'll see. And it's up to Ronald Jones. This morning, after the signing, Bruce Arians says, Rojo is our guy. It's his job. Nothing has changed for him. It's his job. He's got it. He's got to screw it up to lose it. And I don't see that happening. And, and he called Fournette a heck of an insurance policy. So I don't want to rant. Okay, Cecil.
Please do rant, because that's what he said, and I haven't seen the comments. I just woke up. But if that's what he said, why is there this faux outrage? And I'll say it's faux outrage because that's what it is.
Well, I think what you have is, and I don't want to psychoanalyze. Well, what am I saying? I do want to psychoanalyze. I want to psychoanalyze everybody. That's what on the
Your name's Sigmund, dude.
Yeah, exactly. I think that Leonard Fournette is a classic example of the disconnect between fantasy and real football. Yes, Leonard Fournette racked up some numbers as a rookie on a team that the defense controlled every game. Yes, Leonard Fournette racked up some numbers in his 3rd year on volume. Because of that, he had a group of defenders that were still saying he's worth drafting in the 3rd or 4th round, and maybe even a value in the 3rd or 4th round. They laughed off Chris Thompson because Thompson's going to get hurt, which is fine. And otherwise, Narrative Street, I know this is why people hate narrative, and why when I say I'm the mayor of Narrative Street, some people might cringe. But the narrative would be, well, it's the last year of his contract. They tried to trade him. It didn't work. They kept him. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option, so they're going to run him into the ground. All right? So Leonard Fournette's still going to get the volume that made him valuable in 2019 and 2020. And for some of us, myself included, that have been looking at this, from the moment that Tom Coughlin was let go, you had to wonder, how long is Leonard Fournette going to be with this team? Because he's a Coughlin pick, down to the offensive blueprint around Leonard Fournette was the Coughlin plan. Out the window. So when Leonard Fournette is released earlier this week, it's only Thursday, that was Monday. Wow. The idea was, this team is looking to the future. It's like Miami last year. I mean, we're looking to the future. We've got a new blueprint. We're going to see who fits in and who doesn't. We know Leonard Fournette doesn't. And there's some stuff. Mark Long, he's been covering the Jags for a while. He said, there was reports that the team was just tired of him. I mean, there's some stuff behind the scenes. Remember, they took away his guaranteed money. Fournette's going to file a grievance on that. See how that turns out. The point is, Leonard Fournette, because of the numbers he put up in his 1st and 3rd year, is overrated in fantasy circles. He's a running back who has an application, but it's an application like Carlos Hyde or Jordan Howard. And those guys are going to have shelf life in the NFL, but you can always do better than them. That's why they're backups, or like Carlos Hyde's brought in at the eve of the season, So I think that people still want to put together some sort of story that all of this is just leading to Leonard Fournette being even better with Tampa than he was going to be with Jacksonville, where Bruce Arians is saying, no, we still are going to give Ronald Jones that chance, the same chance that they were going to give him yesterday. He still has that same chance. Now, granted, and someone just said this in my Twitter mentions, and I would agree with this, that it makes it easier for them to turn to someone else if Jones doesn't do well, because as Arian said, Fournette's an insurance policy. Let's take him at face value. Now, this is where the real meat of fantasy football comes in, Cease, right? Because we know the immediate starting point for offenses, but where you separate good fantasy players from bad fantasy players is being able to anticipate what's going to happen. So I'm okay with saying, well, I'm going to take Leonard Fournette because I believe that Ronald Jones is going to fail, and then Leonard Fournette's going to get his chance, and Leonard Fournette's going to do well, and that's why I'm doing it. But Leonard Fournette is not coming in and taking this job. Leonard Fournette is coming in and at best having Peyton Barber's role, but Arians laid it out for us. It's Ronald Jones' job, and it's up to him whether it remains his job. So this hasn't changed much about the situation, except that maybe there's a little thinner threshold for Jones to not get the job back, right? Because there was this signing is as much about Keyshawn Vaughn as it is about Ronald Jones.
Right.
And perhaps Fournette gives them a much more attractive alternative so that there's less patience with Ronald Jones. I can buy that. But I still think that this generally represents an avoid. I'm not taking either one of these running backs over Zach Moss, over Antonio Gibson, over J.K. Dobbins.
I did get Antonio Gibson as well. I think I got him before Fournette, if memory serves.
And I telegraphed, Cease, I told people, if you want to take Jerry Jeudy, you have to take him before Cecil's
Why did they let me get Jerry Jeudy?
I don't know. I wasn't really trying to undermine you, Cease. You got the great advantage of Patrick Mahomes as the number one pick. So I figured let's try to level out the balance here. Anyway, so I think that's where we stand right now. But this idea that, is Arians telling the truth? He's telling the truth. Arians is not engaging in some elaborate disinformation campaign to throw everyone off the trail of what he wants to do with his running backs. And generally sees over the course of Bruce Arians' career, he's a straight shooter. He's about as straight a shooter as he can be as an NFL head coach. And maybe why people get it twisted that he's a liar or trying to deceive us is because he just says what he believes at the time, but he actually says it. And then it changes, and that's okay because things change quickly around the NFL.
Yes.
But we should believe what he's saying this morning. The fantasy advice here, I think, is just avoid the backfield. I think Dario Ogunbowale is going to have his role. LaShawn McCoy is kind of also an insurance back. Ogunbowale is also a special teams captain. They're not going to let him go. Keyshawn Vaughn, maybe they might try to find a way to creatively put him on IR. But take Arians at face value. Chances are, when we look back at this backfield seats, it's going to look like Barber and Jones last year, unless Jones is the one that runs away with it. Because the other part of this, and this is my personal opinion, I just don't think Fournette is good enough anymore to run away with a backfield. I just don't think he does. He's not an above average pass blocker. He's not an above average receiver. He's maybe adequate or functional. He's a running back who has some power, has some build-up speed, needs the blocking. But Ronald Jones is probably better at breaking tackles now. I think Ronald Jones is more sudden. Both of these running backs, we should just kind of forget about draft pedigree. That's another thing I think that skews everyone's perception of Fournette. Cease. He was the number 4 pick in the draft. I don't care. It doesn't matter now.
No.
He was a guy that just got signed for $2 million. That's who he is. If Fournette got released after the draft, Cease, and they signed him to a 1-year, $2 million deal, we would say, well, it's a competition. It's a competition.
That's what it is. And Ronald Jones is in the driver's seat, and Ronald Jones is emerging. Ronald Jones is getting better, and he's not quite Thomas Jones, because I don't think he's got it like Thomas Jones got it finally, but we have to remember the history lesson, and we're both old. Thomas Jones took like 4 years to get going, and when he did, it was really good. He really got it. But he didn't do anything in Arizona, spent like half a year in Tampa, ironically, got it, and then moved on. Chicago, the Jets, the Chiefs, and was a 1,200-yard back almost all the time. So is Ronald Jones getting it? Basically, what this signing does, Bloom, I think it shines a mirror on people and what they think about Ronald Jones. If you liked Ronald Jones and thought he was emerging, you think, oh, well, he's the guy, and Fournette's a good insurance policy, like Arian said. If you didn't like Jones and have been disappointed by him, you will say, oh, well, Fournette's going to take his job because Jones doesn't get it.
Yes, and which is fine, because fantasy football at the end of the day should be about standing behind your takes on players. And in the end, usually correctly gauging. So here's a good test, Cease. How much of fantasy football is being accurate at gauging what a team wants to do, and how much of it is being accurate at how much the players are going to influence that as the season goes on. You know, sure, we know teams' immediate starting plans. This is just like earlier in the offseason when I was getting a lot of Melvin Gordon, and I think you would not have told me that was a bad idea
No,
because
no,
of
not
the
early in the offseason. No.
right, based on the money, based on what Philip Lindsay did and didn't do last year and what Melvin Gordon did and didn't do last year. It seemed like Gordon was going to get the choice cut of the backfield for fantasy value, and Lindsay was still going to get 30 to 40% of the work, but the less juicy cut. It was. I know nothing about butchering cows. I was going to try to say something about Wagyu beef or something there, right? See, so you got like the poster.
Okay.
With all
It
the
wasn't
cuts.
the prime cut.
It wasn't the prime cut. Thank you, USDA prime. And then Philip Lindsay basically asserted himself.
Will not be denied.
Right.
It's like a Terminator, man. You can't reason with him.
So
you can't talk to him. You can't reason with him. You can't stop him. Philip Lindsay
Yeah.
changed what the team wanted to do.
Exactly.
Team wanted to move on from him. Hell, they never wanted him as the starter.
Yeah.
They draft Royce Freeman to be the guy. Freeman was supposed to be the guy last year. Lindsay changed what they wanted to do.
So still stand behind your takes. If you really love Leonard Fournette and you think he was just on a bad Jaguars team last year, and then you can tell the story of now he's really motivated for his contract and so on, then go ahead and take Leonard Fournette and it'll resolve itself. But like you said, Cease, it's also how you feel about Ronald Jones. So, we circle back to whatever we think of Bruce Arians' truth telling. You still have to stand behind the player that you think is the better player. But it may well be that if Jones doesn't assert himself, I don't think Fournette is going to assert himself in a way that's just going to leave Jones in the dust. And this may just be a none of the above backfield. But where you got Fournette, 8, 12, it's super flex league. That's about the point, 8th, 9th, 10th round. If you want to think about taking a chance on one of these Tampa running backs, that's where I would think about it. But I personally wouldn't do it.
It was a tipping point, and also I waited on running back so long. I was like, well, you're gonna have to go with running back. But these are the choices that you make. These are the choices that you'll be left with. What I always think, Bloom, is how are you going to defend Tampa? Because everyone was tweeting out the stacked box rate for Leonard Fournette over the last 3 years, and it's gone from like 47%. Number one in the league to like, I think it was 34, 35% last year, was still top 5 in the league. So we saw a lot of stacked boxes. Why? Blake Bortles and, Gardner Minshew were quarterbacks. Now with Tampa, and this is same thing for Ronald Jones. How will you defend Tampa when there's 6, 7 in the box and that running back's a slasher? Again, there's great value here if it's one guy, and if he plays up to expectations, because you're not going to be concerned about the ground game. You don't go into a game against the Buccaneers like, how do we shut down Ronald Jones? And can Jones take advantage of that? Can he change the narrative? I think he can, Bloom, based on just how you can't defend everybody for Tampa.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? If we're saying that Leonard Fournette's going to benefit because he's going to face less stacked boxes, fewer stack boxes, less and fewer. I think that's something that Jones can benefit from too. And again, Fournette's maybe more powerful. Fournette maybe is a little tougher to bring down in the open field because of his bulk. Jones is better at breaking tackles. Jones is more sudden. I think Jones maybe has a little more burst. So we'll see how it plays out. Greg Auman, who is from the Athletic, said that it's still going to be, and it's great to we look at the word choices here. He says, I think Jones has the first crack at it. No one's saying it's his job through sickness and in health. If he fumbles, if he misses a blitz, if he underperforms, he's got multiple guys behind him ready to step in and try to do the same, if not better. So that's where we stand here. It's just another day of news and notes in the NFL. We've got a Josh Gordon story. We got broken pinkies. We've got Amari Cooper missing practices. So some of these are familiar storylines. This one may be unfamiliar, but I do think when we look at the Bucks backfield last year and this year and how it was divided up, it will be divided up similarly. But you're right. If the Bucks offense is a lot better with Tom Brady, that also makes it more interesting.
We took about 10 minutes and got to the Broncos because it is a Broncos show.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the finger. Damian Harris just continues. Everyone's so excited. Like, maybe Damian Harris now. And then, like, yesterday, the Newswire, before Fournette signed, is like the Patriots could sign him. And then the Buccaneers could sign him. And the Buccaneers ended up getting him. But it came back to everyone's thoughts on Damian Harris. Now, Sony Michel is back. Sony Michel's working his way back, looking pretty good, according to camp reports. Rounding into form is what the running backs coach Ivan Fears says. So Michel's rounding into form. Damian Harris had surgery on his pinky, which will keep him out a few weeks. So here we go again. Damian Harris letting us down because everyone seems to get excited anytime he's like sniffing a possible opportunity, and then disappointment.
Yeah, and disappointment is going to be the Patriots backfield this year. Just take James White. James White's interesting because who else does Cam Newton have to throw to other than Julian Edelman? See, I just love saying Gunnar Olszewski, pride of Bemidji State, the second best receiver in training camp.
I'm just mad because I have to spell that now on the Newswire. I'm
I know.
Man. Hyphenated names are bad enough.
Right.
And then now Olszewski.
Olszewski. You don't pronounce it the way you spell it, though. That's the thing about some of these names. But I love saying Gunnar Olszewski, pride of Bemidji State, because Rob Harling, who was a good friend of mine when I worked at UT, was the person who told us about Football Guys. So Rob Harling also went to Bemidji, or is from Bemidji. Sorry, Rob, if I'm mixing that up. He set this whole thing in motion like 20 years ago. You know, let's tell a little story.
Butterfly's wings.
Right. Bemidji State. The point is Gunnar Olszewski is the second best receiver in training camp. So James White and Julian Edelman. It's going to be a James White, Julian Edelman pass offense. And Cam Newton can feed James White. Remember, he fed Christian McCaffrey for his first 100-catch season. So James White is interesting. I take James White over either Tampa back in a PPR league at this point. Then you have, like you said, Sony Michel's coming back. He's coming on. Damian Harris was the best back in training camp. But look, Damian Harris at Alabama was a solid running back. Nothing special, a solid all-around running back. He's not going to distinguish himself, so they say, well, we're not going to use Michel. We're not going to use Brex Burkhead anymore because Burkhead's also going to play a role. Then you have Cam Newton taking touchdowns at the goal line, as Cam Newton does. This is just a backfield to not be interested in. In your end game, you don't need to reserve a pick for Sony Michel. You don't need to reserve a pick for Damian Harris at this point. Not that it changes it that much, but Damian Harris doesn't get that opportunity to come out of the gate strong and really put his hold on this backfield, whatever that would mean for fantasy.
It is the Audible. We're going over some training camp news and notes, but we want you to say hello to your new favorite place to play fantasy football for real money. It's Underdog Fantasy. With Underdog, all you need to do is the fun part, the draft. Forget about the injuries, trades, waivers, and setting lineups. Just set it, forget it, and wait for the winnings to come in. They have a $1 million tournament. That's right. Just draft the best team, and you'll have a shot at $1 million in prizes. Sign up for Underdog today and enter the Best Ball Mania for a chance at $1 million in prizes by going to UnderdogFantasy.com. That's UnderdogFantasy.com, or searching for Underdog Fantasy in your app store. Be sure to enter the code FBG after you make your first deposit. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. What's the Cooper deal? Not that everyone cares about my fantasy team, Bloom, but I drafted Amari Cooper as well. So now I'm like, well, wait a second. What's going on with Amari Cooper?
Just limited or missing practices the last 4 days. And here's my take on this. Last year, very similar news, or maybe even worse news. I think we were more worried about Amari Cooper last summer than this summer. And he came out of the gate on fire. First half of the season, he was amazing. Then it was before the Minnesota game. He had an MRI on his knee, and there was nothing that made them shut him down or make him miss time. And he actually had a good game against Minnesota, but then he wasn't the same for the rest of the year. And I think he had another MRI later on in November. I don't know if it was on. I think over the course of the year, he had like 3 MRIs, ankle, knee. I don't remember what the third one was. So I think if you do have Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb or Michael Gallup or Blake Jarwin, really, what we need to be on the lookout for, Cease, is Amari Cooper. Maybe Amari Cooper is just AJ Green, but 3, 4, 5 years before AJ Green got to the point that he's at now, where he's an incredible player, but once something gets out of whack, and this is where I would defer to your car intelligence sees, because it's like the sports car. It's the sports car versus like the Honda or the Toyota that you can just like slap some duct tape on there and it'll keep
I'll
running.
say this because as someone who's driven Audis and Range Rovers and Mercedes, it's like those cars are awesome until something goes wrong. And
Right.
then they're expensive and then lots of little stuff starts going wrong. So you better have it anytime someone drives one of those. I was like, you better have it under warranty because it's a fantastic automobile, but it will also put you in the poorhouse if you don't have warranty on it.
So our warranty on Cooper in this case is Gallup or Lamb, and we may well see something like last year where Cooper dominates, and then once we see him come up on the injury report more often, if we see and sees what can we deduce if a player is going to get an MRI? This is like Brashad Perryman, right? There was some news that Brashad Perryman had an MRI on his knee earlier this week, the one that's swelling, and they found nothing alarming that would indicate that he should be shut down. But that he had to have the MRI alone is bad. It's a sign that he's saying something doesn't feel right. So as Cooper goes through the season, knowing that he's already, there's some, again, the car analogy, like you hear the engine missing every now and then when you start it up or something. Like already Cooper's like, hey, this is why like when it happens with AJ Green, we back away. We're backing away to the tune of dropping 3 or 4 rounds in the draft, as he should. With Cooper, he's going to remain a third-round pick, as he should, but this should just remind us of how last year went. And really, the idea here is, how many years has Amari Cooper played at his highest level from the beginning to the end of the year?
How many
0.
years?
None.
Yeah, none.
None. Hasn't happened yet, so we should just be on the lookout for that to be the story again this year.
By the way, as Tony says, Bloom, thank you for allowing me to humble brag on cars.
Yeah.
Although
I saw somebody.
I did not mention my BMWs that I get now. So thank you to Co's BMW. That is a paid sponsorship, just not for this show.
Right. Audi might not give me one now. Right. So I saw someone with a Shelby shirt on the other day, Cecil, and I almost ran up to them and said, my friend Cecil Lammey, I do a show with him. He actually has a Shelby. I saw the number on the dashboard. I don't remember what the number is. What is the number?
It's the number 7, built in 2007.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice symmetry.
Yes, that's why I got it. I didn't plan on getting it until actually I turned 50, which isn't for a while now, thank goodness. But since I saw it, I think I've had her for 4 years.
Yeah.
I've only driven her like 150 miles this year. I need to get on the road.
Cecil, favorite number 7 in NFL history?
Oh, Elway.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah. So there you go. I'd say his saying my name is my ringtone, but I won't play that right now. You know this, Cecil. You got a Y and an F. You know this, Sigmund. You got Josh Gordon back with Seattle. Some things are just meant to be, Bloom, and that's one thing that hey, Josh Gordon back, work into the mix, see what they got. This was going to happen. This was like meant to happen. I don't think Antonio Brown got taken last night, right? In our draft? No, in 18 rounds. Did someone take Gordon?
No.
Someone might think about it now.
Yeah. Well, number 3 receiver. And I don't think this necessarily changes the outlook for Tyler Lockett. It doesn't change the outlook for DK Metcalf. Now, he has to be reinstated, but it's being reported in strong enough terms that I think he'll be reinstated. But what we have here now, this maybe is the best for Russell Wilson. Because remember, they already brought back Paul Richardson. Now, and there's chemistry and history there. There's chemistry and history of Josh Gordon. So now you have Philip Dorsett, who's been a little banged up as a number 5 receiver, or David Moore as a number 5 receiver. Point being, they've got a deep and experienced wide receiver group now, with Gordon and Richardson as your 3 and 4. So I think this is a good development for Russell Wilson. It's a good development for Seattle. And we can tick off these storylines. We're waiting now for Jadeveon Clowney. Waiting to see what happens there. We saw Logan Ryan sign with the Giants. That's one that's somewhat predictable, although maybe Xavier McKinney's injury changes the role he's going to have. So IDP leaguers, by the way, you can get a safety who has cornerback eligibility in Logan Ryan. So there's free agents we've been waiting on, and we've been waiting on the Josh Gordon story. So you're just doing a little house cleaning before we have football in a week, Cecil.
Yeah, football in a week from today. I cannot believe it. By the way, KGB, he's our dude, right?
Yeah.
he's making me a little nervous
Mm-hmm.
because I got Devin Singletary. And again, I waited on running back. So Singletary was what, like my 5th round pick, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Singletary is they're going 50-50 honest.
Yeah.
So this is even more. Moss is going to earn more than a Frank Gore role last year. So you're excited about Singletary. Maybe you should be more excited about Zach Moss.
Yeah, I think so. And going back to that analysis of the Denver situation, as we saw it in the offseason, Moss is going to get those goal line carries. Moss is an excellent passing down back. Moss is pass blocking. I've said this so many times, but I really want to drive it home for people. The most fun I've had watching a college running back pass block is Zach Moss.
That says something.
It does. Because we're thorough. We're thorough when we do our scouting reports. You want to have that, especially because it's a pathway for rookie running backs to get and stay on the field, is that pass blocking. Zach Moss has a zest to his pass blocking. It's what you want to see in running back's mentality. He sees pass blocking as another chance to blow someone up, and he does frequently. And he's also got soft hands. As Matt Waldman's laid out, he's nimble. I still have my doubts about his burst, but maybe it won't matter because of their offensive line, as Matt Waldman was pointing out. Waldman took Moss in our draft last night. So yeah, Moss is the guy. I mean, Moss is probably the guy to take ahead of Singletary in drafts. You don't have to do that. Moss ahead of both Tampa backs. That's going to be the theme of this week's show, today's show. The running backs I would take ahead of either Tampa back.
It's ahead of Tampa's back, so that's all that matters, whichever that one is. It is the Audible, going over some training camp notes. Bloom, you got the live show tonight.
No, well, we had that last night with the live stream.
Yes,
so
last night
but we will return next Thursday night for
Yes.
the great opening.
And perhaps we'll all return.
Mm.
That's a little teaser for those that have been following along. So we certainly thank you guys. This is a much needed, coming together moment.
Yeah.
As you mentioned yesterday, Bloom, like sports is that, handshake, like, hey, I love the Broncos, you love the Broncos, I love the Steelers, you love the Steelers, whatever your team is. You come together and you have fun. You have fun preparing for your draft. We look at what the NFL is doing now and we go, okay, just please give us a full season. Please, for the love of God, be ready. If they don't, have rules in place in your drafts, have rule in place in your fantasy leagues in case there's an abbreviated season or season that's, kind of paused with an intermission, what have you. Don't exactly know. 2020 is a weird year. 2020 is not necessarily the greatest year. It's a pretty bad year, actually. But we're here with fantasy football, and we're here for you. And that's what it's about. When Wes comes in, right, to the chat room.
Yeah.
And he starts talking about his latest spliff that he rolled. When our man Jason, we attract the stoners on this show, which is interesting. But anyway,
we're getting off the reservations.
We love them. Sorry, Joe.
CC, like years ago, I would have said there's a big overlap between fish and fantasy football, and now you're just cutting to the chase. But 2020 is a different time, so maybe we speak about these things a little more openly than we used to.
It's Colorado,
exactly.
I don't know how much I should say, but I know a guy that lives fairly closely that has like 12 huge plants in his backyard that nobody cares about.
It's in Michigan, you were allowed to grow, I think, up to 15 plants. So we saw that
in Colorado,
in Michigan too.
In Colorado, it's 3, I believe. But anyway, so smoke away, drink away, be safe, drink water, whatever. I don't care. Just be good. Be a good person. Be a good human. Even to people that you may not agree with everything on. We can have debate. We can have discussion. We can come together. We can love football. We can be a great community. We can be great together. And that's what I was going to point out about Wes before I pointed out his spliff, Bloom. Like when Wes comes into the chat room, he's like, my people.
Yeah.
Dude, you guys are our people. If you're listening to our voice right now, you're our people. Thanks for being with us, man. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having fun with us in this discussion. Thanks for the chat room. Thanks for the guys listening. Our numbers, the downloads and the listens. We appreciate you guys. Help us grow our YouTube channel. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Help us grow footballguys.com if you want to support the show. And we definitely will appreciate that for sure. It does not go unnoticed at all whatsoever. We're here for you. We put out 50,000 pages of content during the year. Footballguys.com. We've got our annual subscription fee. It's, it's a pretty good price. So check it out, footballguys.com. Subscribe if you can. And thank you all very much. Subscribe to our free newsletter, at least. It's free. It's every day. It's written by Bloom and me and Joe Bryant with the latest news stories. So all this commentary that you get on the Audible, you can also get it in newsletter form. It is footballguys.com. And Bloom, we love our community. We love our people.
We do. And I think that something I say often, but I can never say enough, is when people say, this show, I got an email from Shannon, who works like BF Goodrich, I think, on the line, and he's listening to our show, right? So, you're on the line. See, you worked in a machine shop, sometimes having something to occupy part of your brain helps you get through the day. People talk about listening to us on commutes or when they're mowing their lawn or things like that, and how our presence in their life helps us get through the day. I often will say it's a padding from the things in life that scratch and claw and tear at us little by little. Like Bukowski would say, if you feel like you're losing your soul, then at least you still have a soul left to lose. But y'all do that for us. Getting to do this show helps me get through the day. Getting to have an excuse to obsess about football and read beat writer reports and rank players and come up with concepts, that helps me get through the day. And I think that we mutually, all of us in this Football Guys community, have been able to be a positive influence in each other's lives. And isn't that really what it's all about at the end of the day, Cecil? And I said this, I've done a lot of shows in August, like doing the podcast tour of all, people don't understand. I really shouldn't say this. I should, but I shouldn't. Like, I want to say yes to everybody who asks me to come on a show. I like doing shows with people. I like getting to talk to people. I like getting to know people.
You like talking.
I like talking. I like the sound of my own voice. Someone told me I should do ASMR videos, Cecil. What do you think about that?
What is that?
Oh, it's ASMR is like when people take out things and like they'll like stroke like a little carpet or something. and do it close to a microphone and make
I was
it
like,
sound...
is this some sort of BDSM? Sorry,
I know. There you go.
ASMR. What?
I know. That'd be a good first guess. Although, look at me. I don't think I should be in any sort of just prurient interest videos.
Sex God Pod coming soon.
It's coming soon. Coming soon. Anyway, hopefully not too soon. Hopefully not too soon. It's just videos where like they're soothing. It's about being soothing. It's about finding these things. It's almost like hacking your brain so it calms you down. There's these videos out there. But my point is this. When I've been on these shows throughout August, because I love doing the podcast tour in August, I try to say yes to everybody. It is a testament to our fantasy football community in this day and age that we are one of the most positive, mutually uplifting communities in the internet virtual world. Still in 2020, we're like 93% positive. We help each other out. When someone in our community needs something, we pull together and we try to elevate each other. So for that, everybody listening to this show, we all deserve a pat on the back. And that's something that the world needs more of. Love, sweet love. It's the only thing. That and clarity on the Tampa backfield. That there's just too little love.
We all have greatness inside and greatness together as communities. So thank you guys very much for listening. Thanks for listening to us on the Audible, watching us on YouTube, and all those sorts of things. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We're the Audible. Everyone stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.